you need more information about the services that we continue to work from here in the city, please continue to go to richmondgov.com/COVID-19. That information will be available on that website. Just to recap this week, I just want folks to know that we made a concerted effort to advocate for more city and federal assistance from the statewide level, and also from the federal level as well. We obviously have been working diligently to be a voice for the voiceless, for those who are, well, I believe, are suffering the most through this pandemic. And it's my belief that it's hard to stay at home if you do not have a home or if you do not have shelter. And so the focus of this past week has been in trying our best to ensure that those in need of that shelter, those in need of that hand up, get that hand up from that help from the federal government and the state government. I wrote a letter to Governor Northam supporting his amendments to cap housing fees and extend the moratorium on evictions. But I made it clear that there's more that can be done to protect those who are most vulnerable, who are being impacted by this pandemic. As we all know, that May 1st is coming. And with May 1st coming, it's another time in which rent will be due, or mortgage payments will be due. And so I'm grateful that the governor has extended the eviction moratorium. It's been extended to May 17th here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But we all know that with a moratorium also comes a time where the bill will come due. And that is the sort of issue that keeps me, and I know of plenty other people around the city, up at night. The rent continues to accumulate as you have no job to go to and you have no funds to pay for the rent, and staying at home has become the number one priority. And that's why I've asked the governor to at least check into piloting the program, an eviction early intervention program to create a pool of housing assistance funds for families between the 0 and 30% of average median income. We need that sort of assistance ASAP, today. If anyone's out there listening on part of the federal government or the state government, we need those sort of funds in the city of Richmond for families and people who have been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. We need those funds today. I don't know how many more letters I can write. I don't know how many times I can beg for it, but I'm going to continue to do so to ensure that the voiceless out there get what they deserve to survive through this crisis. In the city, we've also, this past week, put together a $5.8 million emergency package targeted towards housing, particularly for those in our most vulnerable populations, to tackle housing insecurity and homelessness as well. We're going to see investments in more affordable housing units, more shelter beds, but also in the eviction diversion program. We know that after the moratorium ends, that the evictions will start to add up, and we want to make sure that we can still be of assistance to as many families as possible after the pandemic ends, or at least after the moratorium ends. Another issue that we touched on this past week is the fact that Virginia continues to lag behind many other states when it comes to testing, particularly testing per capita. And as I stated yesterday in my press conference, it's almost like having cereal and no milk. And when I hear federal leaders say that we have the capacity to test, localities and states have the capacity to test, yes, we have the capacity, but if you don't have the ingredients for the test, whether it's the swabs for your nose or you don't have the reagents for the testing, it's hard to administer those tests. So I don't want to hear anything about, oh, we have the capacity and we're just not. No, we don't have enough tests. There has not been an abundance of tests in places like Virginia. And we need to do more. We have to do better. I was glad to hear from the Trump administration about plans for supporting the expansion of these tests. But this should have happened 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. We are 6 weeks into this crisis today. And to say that help is on the way, help should have been on the way 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. But nonetheless, I'm grateful and thankful for the president helping us expand that. And as we expand that testing, we have to focus on black and brown communities throughout the city of Richmond. As I stated earlier, 267 cases of positive cases of COVID-19 in the city of Richmond. And a number of those, a vast majority of those who have tested positive have been black and brown people. And of the fatalities, I believe 12 or 14, 13 or 14 have been African American. And so this is something that we have to be a whole lot more targeted with. I'm grateful for the Richmond Health District. They are going to start testing. They've already started testing in Richmond already. There was a free testing site at Southwood Apartments in Southside Richmond this past week. There are also next week will be testing sites that's free and also available to the uninsured in Creighton Court, Gilpin Court, and also in Hillside. And let me just put to rest the myths around testing. This test is not an injection of any sort. No injection. There's no shot involved in this. This is just a test. And as I stated earlier, it's just a swab of the nostrils so we can have that test. And what the test allows us to do is to find where the disease is and where the disease is spreading. We can use contact tracing to see who you may have been in touch with over the last 7 to 14 days, and that will allow us to contain where the virus may be and help you get the care necessary to get you through this pandemic and through the virus. And so that's why I'm asking folks, I'm begging folks, if these testing sites are coming to your neck of the woods next week, please utilize these resources. It's free. If you live in those communities, you can access this. And also, if you live in the vicinity, you don't have to live in Gilpin or in Hillside or in Creighton, you can still access this free testing. I'm asking you to do so. And if you need more information about this, 804-205-3501. I'll say it again, and I'm in a slow draw, 205-3501. That's a great segue for something I also spoke about earlier this week as well, and is we see the disparities in the African American community when it comes to the impact of COVID-19 on that specific community. 61% of the cases thus far are positive cases were African American, and 93% of the fatalities have been African American. This pandemic is pointing out and highlighting the racial disparities that I think that we've all known and we've all talked about for a very long time. But now, when we all know that when it's cold outside, it's the poor, and a lot of times those who are black and brown who are the coldest. When it gets wet outside, it's those who are poor and black and brown who are the wettest. And in every natural disaster, there's always African Americans, and the lower income communities pay a significant toll. We just have to realize that, and that is just not you can say that is a knock on government and the federal government, because we have to be doing more, not just when the pandemic hits, but prior to that. That leads me to what we talked about earlier today, and that was this week is Earth Week, April 20th through the 24th. On Monday, I presented a proclamation recognizing Earth Week and everything we need to do to make for a healthier environment and healthier world for each and everyone. No matter who you are, what color your skin may be, how much money you have in your pocket, you deserve a healthy environment. You deserve a healthy earth. And that's what our work around RVA Green 2050 will be all about. Earlier this week, I introduced via Facebook Live Kendra Norrell, who is going to be working with our efforts to bring RVA Green 2050 to all of our communities, particularly our black and brown communities. We have to bring an equity approach to understanding climate change and the impacts of climate change on our current environment in all of our communities, not just a specific community, but all of our communities. Over the last 50 years, we've seen a lot of progress on the health of Richmond's environment, particularly the James River. But I want you to take a moment and look at this map that I have, and it shows you the disparities when it comes to climate change vulnerability, but also on the COVID-19 crisis as well. What you are looking at is a map that is pretty identical. Pretty identical. And here's the thing, if you throw a number of other issues on this map, whether it's asthma or respiratory illness, you name it, or any health crisis, this map looks the same. And I think we all can say that is a problem. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is two Richmonds right here. These are the two Richmonds right here. I believe that when we pursue RVA Green 2050, a reduction in emissions and creating a healthier Richmond in terms of the environment, but also healthier in terms of your health as well, that every neighborhood deserves a better environment, a healthier environment. And that's what our work on RVA Green 2050 will be all about, that equity approach. And so I want to thank Kendra Norrell and also everyone involved in the Sustainability Office who are focused on getting that out to the public. We need your help. If you want to engage now in RVA Green 2050, I ask that you visit rvagreen2050.com and sign up to be a virtual ambassador, get out in the community and engage more people. We want your voices heard through this process on how we make create a greener and healthier Richmond for all. Also, I wanted to let you know that we are making some updates to rvastrong.org. I got to say, RVA Strong has been widely popular. I love seeing it on social media. I love seeing it on websites. Folks are leaning in and coming together as a collective around what we can be as a community. We are going to get through this, but we only get through this by us working together, being neighborly, being generous, being compassionate, and that's what rvastrong.org is all about. Now, we've been listening to a number of our residents who have chimed in on RVA Strong, whether it's stories or just how we can better their lives through RVA Strong. And so one thing that we've heard since we've been in our houses for 6 weeks is that, we recognize there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and a lot of frustration for being indoors for 6 weeks. That's a very, very long time. And so this time indoors is definitely taking a toll on our mental health. And what we've done is we've provided some resources on rvastrong.org for those individuals who need access to resources pertaining to mental health, but also for addiction of substance abuse as well. I think Chief Smith, the chief of Richmond Police Department, stated yesterday at my press conference that we've also seen a spike in domestic violence as well because of this stay-at-home order. And what we want for folks is to realize that before we go to violence, give those organizations a call on RVA Strong and let's talk it out before we put our hands on anyone. That's the last thing we want to do. And so we ask that you go to rvastrong.org and use some of the resources that are available there. Also, as rvastrong.org begins to evolve, we want to ensure that this is also equitable, that all communities have access to RVA Strong. And that's why we are building out our Spanish functions for the website as well, so that those who are in our Latino community have access to the resources that are available, whether it's the Richmond Crisis Fund for families who are in need of help because they're facing hardships because of the economic downturn, or those who are businesses who may need access to, whether it's the Richmond Small Business Disaster Loan Program as well, that's located all at rvastrong.org. rvastrong.org was created with the impetus behind it was to create a virtual community in a time where we can't be our communal selves, right? We can't be out and about in restaurants or in spaces where we would gather and enjoy one another's time. And so we've heard from a number of people who have accessed it and used it as a way to connect with others, and that's what we want you to continue to do. And tonight, I want to just touch on just a couple stories that I learned from rvastrong.org that have been touching to me, and it just shows and highlights the sort of people we have in the city of Richmond, and that the impacts of COVID-19, that it's real, that it's playing out in the number of households throughout this city, but also we have to recognize throughout this country as well. Most of the stories we hear about on rvastrong.org, unfortunately, are stories of struggle, stories of anxiety, stories of frustrations, stories of fear. And no, government does not have the answer to all of those issues. Fear, anxiety, you name it. We don't have all the answers, but what we can do is offer some comfort to some of the stories that we hear on RVA Strong. One of the stories I wanted to highlight today was from a resident named Mary who lives in South Richmond. Mary is a teacher, and Mary, she's not only a teacher, but on top of being a teacher, she's also a mother. She's noticing that her kids are being home here 24/7, that the bills are starting to double up, are starting to add up. And obviously, morale is slipping inside her home and probably inside her heart as well. When you are unable to provide for your family, there's a certain amount of pressure that I've seen on the face of my father when he's lost his job and he had no plan B, no plan C. 6 weeks in, I recognize that the plans have gone out the window. And now all we can do now is be a support, be the foundation, be that rock for our families. And so Mary is one of those rocks in our community, a rock for her family. And she's already had a birthday in our family. They had to celebrate behind closed doors with COVID-19. But she also has a daughter that has a birthday coming up in May. And the inability to celebrate that milestone obviously creates this dip in morale. So I want Mary to know, if she's out there listening tonight, that Mary, that you're going to get a gift from me to your daughter. I'm not going to even attempt to sing happy birthday tonight. That's just not something I'm going to do. But I want you to know that we're thinking about you and that we care about you. I want to say thank you for also being not only a rock for your family, but a rock for our community by keeping our community safe and staying at home too. So that gift is on the way, and my office will be in touch. And the last uplifting story tonight is a story of a friend of mine. I consider him a friend. He's a local food activist, Duran Chavis. Duran reached out on rvastrong.org to share a story about resilience and also innovation. This is one of the most innovative brothers we have in the city of Richmond. He started a Resiliency Garden initiative, which constructs raised garden beds in the yards and public spaces of Richmonders who do not have regular access to nutrition and also fresh produce. Despite a number of setbacks that sometimes it occurs, particularly when you're an entrepreneur, I would say a social entrepreneur like someone like Duran, after a number of setbacks, he's been able to establish this platform. It got off the ground and has delivered around 200, believe it or not, 200 beds since this past March. These are beds that we can grow produce. Pretty amazing. 200 families will now have fresh veggies coming their way, fruits and veggies coming their way this spring. And I think that's just amazing. Duran doesn't have to do this. Duran decides to do this, wants to do this, because not only does he have a passion for nutrition and ensuring that all people, black and brown people, everyone, no matter where you live, has access to fresh produce, but that he also loves the city of Richmond. And what I've heard and what I've seen throughout the city in the last 6 weeks, that there are a number of people out there who continue to love the city despite this difficult time, and they show that love in many different ways. They make masks, they deliver coffee to healthcare workers, they deliver food to those on the front line. To me, that exhibit of love is the only way we're going to get through this. That's the bottom line. The only way we're going to get through this is with a little love. I'm not here to preach to you all tonight, but it's the only way I'm getting through this. Getting the love and support and encouragement from my family and friends who know that there's sleepless nights. There's sleepless nights around this city for a number of people. But we get through this by loving on one another. That's all we have right now. And to me, outside of staying at home, that is our greatest weapon in combating this pandemic. And so my request this weekend is grab the person next to you, love on them, hug them if they live in your home. Obviously, don't do that randomly. If they live in your home, and let them know that you love them and that you have their back, like you have Richmond's back. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for tonight. My request is to stay safe and stay strong. RVA strong.